from 2016 to 2018, I was in Philly. I wasn't playing a lot, had some dark days there. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do when I'm done playing hockey? If this is it for me and I shut her down today, like, can I be happy doing something else?
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I started, real estate. And I've always been interested in houses and buildings and apartments. And that's kind of when I really dove in and like tried to learn, was taking classes and watching YouTube and just podcasts. And that's when I really took those 2-3 years, and then COVID kind of progressed that a little bit, but I just kind of took my learning to a new level, and I was like, okay, this is something that I can do and kind of build off that.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where we talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. We get to learn who they are and how they think, and we get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and their businesses. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with now retired NHL hockey player Dale Weiss. Dale played professional hockey for 13 years, with time spent with the Chicago Blackhawks, the Philadelphia Flyers, and most notably, the Montreal Canadiens. From game-winning goals to line brawls to hat tricks, he did it all. Dale was revered for the way he played the game, where it was apparent he gave everything he had on every shift, which got him incredible respect from both players and fans alike. Now retired, Dale has taken a keen interest in business. His primary direction has been cash flowing rental properties, where he has amassed a large portfolio in his short time after hockey. I'm really interested to hear about why and how he had the success he did in the NHL, and how all that experience and lessons translate into the world of business, family, and life success. Dale, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great intro there. It got me excited.
I often worry about messing up the intros, not only just fumbling, but also making sure they're correct. So we were just talking about it. I'm really excited because you purchased this business. Now, however much you can say about it or can't say about it, it doesn't matter. But I'm excited to dive in regardless.
Yeah. I think when we were talking about doing this podcast end of last fall, I was deep into it. So the business is 3 Seasons Landscaping. I am officially the new owner of it. I took over just into the new year. It's a business I've been looking at for almost 2 years now, going back and forth with the owner. It is a 3 seasons business, hence the name. So we got so far down the line, sometimes it was too late in the season to kind of acquire it. I kind of look at it twice as like, trying to buy a Christmas tree store on Boxing Day. It just wasn't a good situation. We'd go down the line, we'd get too far. But we finally came to a deal end of probably last summer. And then, officially took over beginning of this year. So very excited about it.
Cool. So this podcast has been, it's been a long time coming. Trying to kind of dive in and really learn some stuff about, your career and all the lessons and stuff like that. So I guess a good starting point for everyone listening would be kind of a quick overview of your hockey career, how you were able to make it in something that like a fraction of a small percentage of players only do. So, first, where did you grow up and how did you get started?
Yeah. Well, born in Winnipeg, born and raised, North Kildonan, Gateway area. My parents still live there. I grew up at Gateway Community Center, where we had one rink when it started. We had no glass. I remember playing where we had the cage as boards. I know it sounds crazy to people because it's a beautiful facility now, but I was there at one rink, and then I got to 2. I grew up playing minor hockey there, Marauders, Sharks. Played for the Winnipeg Thrashers for 2 years. Went to the Western League. I was drafted by Medicine in the Western League. Got cut 16. I got cut at 17. Came back and played in the Manitoba Junior League. About 3-4 weeks maybe. Got picked up by Swift Current. Went to Swift Current. Played 3 years junior there. Got drafted my 19-year-old year. Went on to play pro. I went from being drafted in June as a 19, which was kind of rare at that time, to 3 months later, being the last cut to the New York Rangers, which was kind of a crazy kind of 3 months for me. And then, a couple years in the minors and finally, kicked the door in the NHL.
Very nice. So just quickly, 3 top most notable experiences.
Ooh, good. You know what? It's such a hard question to answer when everyone's like, you got to pick your favorite goal or pick. I like that you pick 3. That makes it a little easier. I think getting drafted was huge. Every kid dreams of getting drafted. You know, I didn't get the fancy, let me go on stage, put the jersey on. I was more at home with my mom and dad, which was kind of cool. So getting drafted is definitely one. I think scoring my first NHL goal, obviously every kid dreams about it. Wasn't a pretty one, but you know, it was my 7th game in Vancouver, kind of like a tip in the slot. Not the prettiest goal, but that kind of sums up my career. I just found a way to make it happen. And then 3rd was probably split between one overtime winner I had against Tampa, my first playoff game with Montreal, and then the following year I scored the tie with 5 minutes left, and I scored a big OT winner to put us up 3-0 in the series. So those are kind of the big ones that stand out for me when I think about it.
What are some of the characteristics that you had to have to, you know, make it in having that kind of career?
Yeah,
because it can't be easy.
No, I think some of the biggest things, and when people say, you know, people ask me, how do I get my 8-year-old to the NHL? It's like, well, stop right there.
Let's not ask that again.
Yeah, don't ask that question again. But if there is something, I think number one is resilience. You know, I got cut. When I was growing up, I wasn't the best player. I was okay when I was younger. I wasn't a superstar. I wasn't playing summer hockey. I wasn't getting these awards for MVP. I wasn't making all-star teams. I was just there. I was good. I worked hard. I loved the game. But as I got older, you know, you get cut from junior. I got cut from junior twice. I got cut, you know, from the NHL 4 times before I made it. Like, I just got cut from a ton of teams. I was so resilient at that point. There was nothing. And I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder from that. I didn't get drafted my first year. I didn't get drafted my second year. I was a late round Bantam pick in the Western League. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I was so resilient that no matter what was going to happen, I was going to keep continuing to get better, and I was going to do everything that I could to get better. And I think resilience and belief kind of go hand in hand for me, where from a young age, I knew I was good, but I always thought I was better than I was. And no matter what anyone would say to me, or you know, I wouldn't win this award, I didn't make the All-Star team, I was always like, oh, I'm better than that guy.
Yeah. And
my dad and me joke about it now, because we talk about it with my nephew, because you know, he's been cut a couple of times now and he gets down on himself. And I was like, man, I got cut all the time. Like, it's what can you learn from that and keep moving forward? How do you use that as motivation and not get discouraged from it? Like, well, I didn't make it. Now I'm just going to stop. It's like, I never had that mindset, and I still don't have that mindset today. It's like, if someone stops me, it's like, okay, here's the roadblock. I'm going to find my way around it. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to continue to get better. So just an insane inner belief in myself. And just, I'm a resilient son of a gun.
Very fair.
Yeah.
When did you start playing?
I started playing hockey when I was 5. Started skating when I was 3, kind of like everyone else with the backyard rink. Started playing at 5 and kind of went from there. Yeah.
Did it dominate all the sports, or did you play other sports?
Yeah, I played other sports, baseball, volleyball, soccer, basketball, pretty much every sport you could imagine. I played it. You know, when I was growing up, there wasn't as big of spring and summer teams as there is now. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It was like one summer team that played one tournament a year, and I was never on it. I played soccer. I did other things. I probably wasn't good enough at that point, but I just chose to do other things. And again, that's another message I share with people all the time. Like, just try different things, try different sports. You'll become a better athlete in your solo sport, whether it's hockey, football, basketball, whatever it is, by doing other things. You know, gaining other athletic abilities will make you a better player. And it's just people that just do one thing all the time. It's just kind of mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, the risk of, I think more kids burn out than those that actually don't. I mean, it's tough to see some of the crazy parents out there.
Crazy parents, like, I can't even, and people always said this, and I don't think I took it serious, maybe because I wasn't around it. But the last 2 years I coached my oldest son in hockey, and I just have seen the most ruthless and like crazy parents. I could only, like, I had people screaming at me a year ago, yelling like my son was no good. He's like, why isn't your son hasn't got a shot on net? I'm like, the guy's 9 years old. Like, do you really want to yell at a 9-year-old? Like, come on. Like, it's, you know, we had a really good player. We played on a rural team from Lactobani. We had an excellent player. He's the best player in the league by far. Should have been on an elite level, but he lives where he lives. So that's where he had to play. And the hatred that this kid got from parents on a 10-year-old was just, it was sad. it was sad. I got in arguments with other coaches, and it was actually a RCMP on the other bench. You know, his kid slashed the kid in the face, and he was like, well, you should have passed the puck. And I was like, we're promoting violence on a 10-year-old because he didn't pass the puck? Like, holy smokes, people. I hate to see what happens behind closed doors, some of these car ride homes, because people I got a real eye opener the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's like when the second people get into the arena or on the field or, you know, anywhere close, that it's different than real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I suppose that would be kind of, I know that it's different, but road rage. You know, people don't act the same when they're in their car screaming at someone. You don't do that shit when you're like walking in the aisle shopping. You know, someone cuts you off.
Well, it's kind of crazy. Like, I'm as competitive as can be. Like, if I play cards with my 5-year-old, like, I'm going to try to beat him. Like, I'm uber competitive.
Yeah.
But there comes a line at some point where, like, we're losing control of, like, this is a fun game. Sports are it's fun. I don't care if you're playing at the top level or the bottom level. Like, the number one thing is your kid's there for enjoyment. They can learn how to be on a team, how to be respectful, sportsmanship. Like, there's so many tremendous things that I think sports teaches. And I'm like the biggest believer of people playing sports, but we're just really losing sight of where, you know, the priorities of the game at this point.
Yeah. What are some of the misconceptions you think, or where people don't understand about those in the hockey world or players in the NHL?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think hockey players are stereotyped a certain way quite a bit. Okay. For whatever reason, I think people expect them to be a certain way. You know, maybe they're supposed to drive fancy cars and have nice things and do all these things. And I always get that when you're talking to people, and maybe it's more around Winnipeg. We're a little smaller city and everything. I talk to people and they're like, wow, I'm surprised you're so nice. And I'm like,
surprised you're normal.
I was like, should I be an asshole? Like, what did you expect? And I kind of get the same answer. Like, well, I just expect people to be arrogant. And like, I just hear it a lot. And I think it's a big misconception, because so many hockey players that I played with, I would say 75% of them don't come from wealthy families. It's a very wealthy sport. Like, to play is not cheap, but I would say 75 come from blue collar homes, you know, working families. And, you know, they're raised right, and they're great human beings. And I think hockey players kind of have that misconception where they're arrogant and they're, you know, and I think that's probably the biggest misconception that I would say. There's so many tremendous hockey players that give back, not only financially, but their time and volunteer a ton. And, you know, that would definitely be
So professional athlete, you know, you're clearly, you know how to prep your body, train your body from, you know, what you do to what you eat to how much, you know, you're doing. I saw that you are now 75 harding, which, sorry, I'll say the 75 hard challenge for those that don't know what it is, which it's a complete, correct me if I'm wrong, a complete life-changing 75-day challenge, including both or all physical, nutritional, mental, and kind of emotional work that goes into it, where if you fail just one day, you start over, right? What prompted you to start that, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, I tried it a couple times, to be honest, and I failed. And it's because I've been out of the professional world now, playing wise. I haven't played for, you know, just about 3 years now. I kind of missed having that structure. I have structure in my life, and you know, I'm not sleeping until noon. I have some other things that I got going on, but they're not really, you know, like mandatory. Like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And I kind of missed that. And so I wanted to get some structure back. And also, you know, making yourself do extremely hard things, because it's like, well, I can work out once a day. That's fine. I'll find a way to get in, whether I have to work out at night at 10 o'clock or maybe I work out at 6 in the morning. But when you got to get 2 45-minute workout in, it doesn't seem that hard, but it actually really is, because you get busy doing other things and you want to be with your kids, and I want to do this, I want to do that. And you're like, whoa, like, you got to hold yourself accountable. It's like, I'm going to go to bed in an hour, but I haven't worked out the second time. So I think I failed it twice before. I'm into it now, where I'm about halfway. So we'll see if I make it. I'm doing good so far. And I think once you get to about 30 days, I don't know what you hear all the like gimmicks, like once habits after 30 days.
Yep.
I would say 30 days is a pretty good number to where if you've done something consistently for 30 days, it's almost like you're addicted to it now. And it's like, okay, I have to work out.
Yeah.
If I don't work out, I just don't feel good, but your mind just won't allow you. Like
new neurological pathways.
If you've gone, gone 30
yeah.
days, it's like, okay, now we're forming a habit and you just have no choice. Your body just goes and does it. Almost.
At what point did you fail the last?
The first one I would have been, I think it was about 55. And I was so close too. And I missed the workout. I got behind and I was like, okay, if I can do 3 tomorrow, then I'm going to catch up. And then I was like, nah, that's not fair. And then the other one I might've been probably right about 30, where you miss a day or you miss 2 and you're like, I got to catch up. And it's like, nope, you got to hold yourself accountable.
Like I've known about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've never done it.
Yeah. It's
because I just haven't found I think my excuse, and it is an excuse for sure, is just like I already do some of that, if not most. Like I'm pretty routine, I'm pretty structured, but at the same time, nowhere close to that level of consistency. And just like if you fail, you're done.
Yeah,
restart.
Yeah,
and so that part is just like I haven't been able to get the like. No, I really should do this. Like I haven't found that motivation yet, but I love it. Like I like Andy Frisella. I like his message. I like a lot of that. So I think it's really cool. How did you find that? How did you hear about it?
I think I heard about it a couple of years ago from Andy. And I kind of, on social media, everyone kind of does it. And I never really thought 75 days was that long. And I'm like, oh, I'll be able to do that, no problem. It's easy. I do it the first one. I'm like, man, this is a long time. Yeah. And even like not drinking for 75 days, as I say on social media, like I'm a casual drinker. I'm not a guy that's like, oh, I need a beer today. Or it's like, oh, I need a drink. I've just never been that way.
Yeah.
But it's nice. You get in a social setting, you have a nice glass of wine or something, or you want to sit down and have a margarita with my wife or something. Like, it's just something I enjoy doing. And when I don't do it, I miss it for the first little bit. And then after about 3 weeks, it's like, you totally forget about it. And it's like, wow, I sleep better. I don't crave it. Yeah. And it's kind of like your diet too. You stay away from cheat meals. And I'm not, I keep myself in good shape. I don't have a lot of cheat meals, but you have one here, you have one the second day, then you have one third day. Your body starts to crave that sugar. And when you don't have it, you don't crave it.
Yeah. I started on the Whoop strap.
Nice.
And I definitely noticed the difference in my recovery and my sleep and everything. If you have a glass of wine or a few drinks the night before, it screams at you the next morning. Like,
and you wouldn't think so. If you didn't track it, you would have no idea, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's interesting. So you mentioned that you were pretty structured, especially as an athlete, right? So what was that kind of like, and where did you find your biggest return on, I'll say investment, but of your time, your energy, and your focus?
I think from the time I was 14 years old, being structured and working out was kind of part of my life. So I think for me, it was easy as I continued to do that because it was all I ever know. Like I did it at 14. Okay, I'm starting to play junior hockey. I work out during the season. I'm maintaining. I come home, boom, I'm working out. I got 12 weeks. I got to get ready for the next year. Boom. That was my whole life till about 31 when I retired. And then for me, that was when it was like, I spent my whole life being in a routine and I reaped the benefits. But now it's like, well, I don't need to, because I have no like end game if I'm not in shape here. And my mind kind of went crazy a little bit for about a year, like where I was working, I was like, I'm going to go hard for 4 weeks, but it's like, I'm not on a program. I'm not on a structure. There's no end game. I'm just kind of maintaining. It's something I never did in my whole life. So it was something I found after a year after being retired, is like, I needed to get that structure back, but I needed to have some kind of end goal. And I think I struggled with that a little bit. And I think for me, that's kind of why I got onto 75 hard, because I had to have some kind of scoring or some kind of rank. And for me, it just wasn't good enough to be, well, I feel like I'm in good shape and I don't have anywhere to test it. And I think I've always been competitive. So I think for me, doing something like 75 hard was like, I needed the return for me. I needed to like see it number wise? Like, okay, I can do it for this long, or here's the end game kind of thing.
I can already see it. Doubles pickleball can be definitely something that I can get into.
Yeah.
That shit'll push you.
Yeah. I told you, like, we were talking about pickleball. I gotta get into it.
Can see us getting into that.
Yeah.
Is there any prep when you're talking about retiring or going to prep or looking at retiring? Is there any programs or any, did you talk to anyone that had retired? It was like, help me out, prep me a little bit. Like, what's it like? Cause that's gotta be a huge mental hit, especially from like the getting up and knowing what you're going to do to being like, I don't got to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think it's something, 3 years later that I'm still struggling with. And I just look at it as, when I started playing when I was 5 years old, the goal for my life, I wanted to be a hockey player. And you know how I've said, okay, you should do other sports and do other things. But in my mind, I wanted to be a hockey player. That was it. That was the end goal. There was no backup plan. It wasn't like, well, if hockey doesn't work, I'm going to do this. This was it. I was going to be a hockey player. Yeah. Like I was telling my teachers when I was 5 years old, I'm drawing pictures, I'm going to play in the NHL. Okay. And I vividly remember a situation like this in grade 9 where the math teacher was like, well, you got to do some other things. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a hockey player.
No, I'm good.
And I wish I could have found that teacher once I made it. But, it was just, I was so focused on being a hockey player. And then I reached my goal of my life. Like I made it to the NHL. I had a 10-year career, like better than I could have ever imagined. And then you just fall off the cliff. And it's like, I spent my whole life doing one thing to be that one thing. And I did it. But like, now what? Now what is going to get me excited to get out of bed? And it's like, don't get me wrong, I love my wife and I love my family, and my kids and my wife are the best thing in my life, but you need something personally for yourself that like motivates you and pushes you.
Oh yeah.
And I a couple years after, I was like, wow, I don't know what that is. I don't know if you'll ever get that adrenaline rush doing something else where it's like I'm fist fighting another grown man in front of 20,000 screaming people. Like, where do you get that? Like, I'm not going to go down to the bar and fight someone and like get the same adrenaline rush, So it was a struggle that way. And I think now that I've, 3 seasons is kind of like my goal now, where like I'm all in and that's kind of my focus and I'm laser focused on it. And that's kind of helping the transition. But the NHL doesn't do a good enough job, really. They say they have this alumni program and stuff. It's like, I didn't get contacted by an alumni till October of 2023, which is 3 years later after I played in the NHL, where for a lot of guys, that 3 years could be a lot darker than where I was.
75 days is long.
Yeah.
3 years.
3 years that nobody contacts you.
That's right.
And I don't think it's much. I think it's someone reaching out. Hey, are you okay? Is everything good? And they have those programs, but I don't know. You're in this culture where you don't ever talk about it, especially in professional sports, especially in hockey.
Really?
So it's not something where someone's going to reach out and be like calling the NHLPA and say, yeah, like I'm struggling. I need some help. Like, yeah, I'm just not doing it. I'm having some dark days. Like, I don't think they do a good enough job for that. From 2016 to 2018, I was in Philly. I wasn't playing a lot, had some dark days there. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do when I'm done playing hockey? If this is it for me and I shut her down today, like, can I be happy doing something else? Yeah. And that's kind of when I started, real estate. And I've always been interested in houses and buildings and apartments. And that's kind of when I really dove in and like tried to learn, was taking classes and watching YouTube and just podcasts. And that's when I really took those 2-3 years. And then COVID kind of progressed that a little bit, but I just kind of took my learning to a new level. And I was like, okay, this is something that I can do and kind of build off that.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So was it ever a passion before that or an interest before that? Or that was just like, you just kind of look like that looks pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think for me, my passion was probably more residential homes.
Okay.
From a young age, I just always loved nice houses. I remember driving around, just different areas with my parents when I was a young kid, like, wow, I love that house. I'm going to have a house like that someday. And kind of like, that was kind of from a young age that I had passion in. And then when I looked at it more as an investment kind of thing, I was tired of getting these small returns. Most NHL players, you have your financial managers take your check, boom, take half of it. Here you go. Every check, you don't see it. You don't worry about it. You don't really think about it. And then when you start to learn a little more, you realize, man, these returns are a joke. I want to find something better. So that kind of collaborated together.
Very nice. I think I've ruined my son just from what we do.
Yeah.
And so we'll be driving down the street and he'll legitimately be looking at hoses. He'll be like, nope, garbage, tear down. This one's nice. Garbage.
Yeah. That might be a good thing, though.
Yeah.
Might be a good thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm like, your sister's probably taking over this thing anyways. She's probably way more organized than you.
He can be boots on the ground, though.
Yeah. Okay. So after, what was the first real estate investing kind of thing that you got into?
Yeah. So actually, kind of at the same time, me and my wife got into a business in Montreal, and long story short I was probably planning, if it wasn't for COVID, to live in Montreal. I was probably going to stay there. We were looking at houses. We were where we were renting. We were probably going to buy. We were probably going to stay there.
Yeah.
Started a business there. Our grand opening was March 27th, 2020.
Okay.
Probably the worst time in history to open a retail business. Was not good. So again, that kind of played a role in it too. For buying this business and getting into real estate, that one failing, they all kind of collaborated together. And the first one was a sixplex in St. Boniface.
Nice.
In 2020.
Very nice.
So it was an old duplex, and tore that one down and built a sixplex.
Yeah. Very nice. So you started learning about it, reading about it, diving in. YouTube's incredible.
Yeah.
Like you can pretty much learn anything. If you want information, Google and YouTube you can take a university course pretty much on anything you want on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Has that shifted at all? Are you still looking at are you still doing the same thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I did that one, and then I did another sixplex in Stradbrook. Probably got burnt more on the Stradbrook one with rising interest rates than I did on St. John. St. John was a home run. Stradbrook, still a great project. And I'm not buying these to flip them anytime soon. I will hold them and hopefully to my kids, and they'll continue to go on. So it was, again, good learning lessons. And I think that combined with our other business that was a startup, pushed my mind into, okay, I'm always looking for good returns. Mm-hmm. I love the business side. Real estate is a little more passive. Like, what am I going to do with my full time? And then that's kind of when I looked at, okay, now I got to start looking at maybe buying established businesses, because I don't want to start up a business like that. I know it was COVID, but when I'm looking at, you got to find a customer base, you got to build your team, you just have to build everything. Mm-hmm. Or I can, and it costs a little more capital up front, but now I'm buying all that, and we're ready to rock from day one, and I'm making cash flow from day one. So to me, it was just kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. Oh, the amount of time that I have spent contemplating my life after, 8 years of building a company from scratch.
Yeah.
I'm just, you think of all the other ways that you can come into it, and buying an established business is just like, it's incredible.
Yeah. And so 3 seasons then, when me and the owner were talking, probably 2 years ago, and I'm just looking, and I probably looked through 250 businesses across Western Canada by the time we closed the deal in this one. And, you're looking at a guy, he ran this, Gary Weinberg is his name. He's done a tremendous job. I'm still learning from him. He's still on with us. And he did it for 42 years this year.
Crazy.
So when you think about the experience that he has gained in 42 years, and you just get to acquire that, and not have to learn through the mistakes and the pains and the trial and error that he has gone through, it's just, there's risk and everything, but it just sets you up so much further down the road. And to have, you don't need to go find a mentor. He's right there.
Yeah.
It's just been tremendous.
Nice. Is this something that you want to do multiple times? Is it like a portfolio of companies kind of in your foresight?
I think so. I think, and then I'm in some talks with some other ones, and I think kind of growing, and I'm learning it as we go here, but I'm trying to integrate smaller operations that might be kind of, and I think the best situation is finding guys that have, done it for a long time. They have the experience, they have the crews. So you're essentially just buying their client base. also, I think everybody's struggling with this right now. Is just finding good people.
Yeah.
Trying to
100%.
find a good foreman is very, very difficult. And every company in the city is trying to do it.
Right.
So it's hard to find those people. When you get them, you want to keep them. So, if you're looking at kind of growing by integration, like, picking up some smaller guys and just almost getting their crews is I see pretty beneficial at this point.
Yeah. What is the hardest part of buying an established business?
Hardest part, I think, when it's an owner operator, there's so many ways that you can make your financials look tremendous. But when you finally go through them with an expert and you bring your accountants in and you start picking apart and you're finding all this and, well, he was running this through here and this and this and this. There's just so many ways that an experienced guy that's ran the business for so long can really hide the numbers, build them up, hide them. I've looked at a couple where, they have no profit and they're trying to tell you, well, add this back. It's like, yeah, it looks great, but you can't prove it. So I think really trying to find the actual number is kind of the hardest part I found. It's like, what is your true net?
Yeah.
It's extremely hard. And at the end of the day, you still don't really know.
Yeah.
You're trusting somebody that they're I had a good situation where he wanted to sell at that time. I wanted to buy, and we both trusted each other and it worked out well. But there were some other ones that I looked at that would have been scary. Just,
I never really understood that. I never really understood gross, how people's just massive obsession with gross revenue or EBITDA or, I'm like, really, let's look at net.
Yeah.
Okay. Just talk to me about net.
Yeah.
How much am I taking home
in
my pocket? And I guess it's an ego thing. Really.
Yeah.
It can be. I mean, there are predictors that you can use, but you're right. It's so difficult, especially in, the way, and whether it's on purpose or not, the way that people kind of build their own webs of either back-end processes or just financial transactions or just stuff that they've always done that have worked. I mean, it's really neat when you have somebody. I had a new assistant project manager that came in, and I told him, ask as many questions as you can. If something doesn't make sense to you, ask questions. Mm-hmm. And it really bothered me at first, because now I have to answer to everything. Like, why did you create this? And I'm thinking like, because I had to, and it's just, well, it's not working. And, you kind of check your ego a bit and just be like, okay,
that's tough to do.
You're right. It's not working. Let's build something that is working. Yeah. And let's build a different process that, can be, that works in perpetuity and you can pass down. And, the ultimate goal is really, can we train on the low end of actual execution? Can we train the lowest of the low of skilled labor or unskilled labor to do this job through our systems and processes, right? How do we not have to find someone that is, super experienced or all that? So yeah, it's the amount of stuff that you go through is just crazy. You mentioned family. Let's dive into family a little bit. So there's many aspects. You have decided to join this trifecta of insanity, which is a married businessman with kids. Mm-hmm. And so you have 4 kids.
Yep.
Which is awesome and crazy.
Yep.
Happily married. How do you approach both parenting and being a husband? Is that something that you give much thought to, or does it kind of come naturally to you?
I think being a parent probably comes more natural than the marriage side. And that, I mean, I had 2 tremendous parents that were very, very involved in my life. I have countless memories of my dad doing this with me. We went bike riding and we played street hockey together. My dad was always there. He was at every game. So that's kind of the dad I am. So that is kind of just natural for me. Where I mean is, as a marriage, my parents have a great marriage. So I that might've sounded bad, but they've been married for 40 years. They have a tremendous marriage, where I have to be a little more intentional with my marriage. I have to really put some time in. I really have to focus on it, because my wife is a trooper, and I can be running in a million different ways and not be showing her enough attention or being there as much as I should.
Mhm.
And she'll never say a word about it. She's there. She supports me in whatever I've done. And she's always been that way. So I think that is something I'm learning. We've been married 10 years this summer. I'm getting better at it. And just making sure I'm intentional with my time with her and making sure that she's my number one priority.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. Like you just get pulled in so many directions, and you feel as a man and a provider, like you're trying to do everything you can to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
But, you take a step back and you're like, well, she might not see it that way all the time. So
Right.
I'm working on it.
So I got smacked in the face by life at 30 with just a monster divorce, and my life kind of fell apart. I thought I was doing everything that I needed to, and just like nothing was working. Right. And one of the very first books that I picked up was The Way of the Superior Man. And it talked about the difference between masculine and feminine energy. And so it's really interesting to think about, you talked about kind of not losing purpose, but not having a purpose when you're waking up, like just being like, what? And that is really funny because masculine energy is like this, you need a purpose and you need to be doing hard shit towards getting that stuff done. And whereas feminine energy is kind of like the crazy ocean that is just like, sometimes it's really flat and sometimes it's a storm, right? And we just have to keep being that like, well, we're just going to go this way regardless, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, marriages they are not, there's not well, I guess there are a lot of books about it, but there's not one size fits all. And it's something that is like, it takes intention. You mentioned intention, and parenting, throwing that in there, like I'm sure that, once you set your mind to something, that most guys are just like, that's all we think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to get it done. And it's hard not to kind of put everything off outside of that and being like, oh yeah. Right. I got to be present here. I got to go give some time here. So how have you found the biggest difference with, you have this business now, you have rental properties, you have a lot of parenting responsibility, how has your time and your energy and focus, how are you balancing that?
Yeah. Not good. I think, I with building my house, from where our shop is, I'm 2 hours away. So, if I'm in the city working, which I am a ton now, or I'm at the properties, and like, if I stay at my mom and dad's or stay at my brother's or whatever it is, like I'm the last couple months have not been a balance. It's like took over the new business, so I'm there a ton. My kid has a hockey game. I'm driving out there to 2 hours doing this, doing that. So I'm hoping once I get into my new house, whenever that is, sometime this year, that the timing will be easier when we're all together. We're all kind of in the same place, but it's tough. There's no there's like one size fits. Like it's tough. You do your best to be there, and I try my best to be there as much as I can. I think I'm there a ton for my kids. And then on the other side, it's like you're building something for them as well. I'm always kind of looking way into the future. That's kind of the way I'm always thinking, and I'm trying to build something for them as well. So you're balancing, like, I'm doing this for them, but also I need to be there for them. So it's a tough juggle every day.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to me about the craziness of residential home construction.
I don't know how you do what you do. I just have gained so much respect for good builders. It's just a crazy, crazy world,
isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Every single day there's something that goes wrong. It's just crazy to me. I don't know how, you guys have it ironed out perfectly, because it's just like, it is the ocean all the time. And there's just, especially with building your own house, it's like you dreamt of what it looks like. It'll never be that. And I think you don't understand that till you've gone through it. And I'm getting to the point now where I think I'm okay with it. I'm going to be happy with the way it turns out, and I'll just kind of go with it and kind of let it go.
It is something. It's like the Wild West. It is insane at times. Theoretically, building a house should be actually really easy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, here's what I want. Here's a professional that's supposed to do this one part of it that, I expect them to know the easiest and cheapest way, or not even cheapest, but the right way to do stuff. And it's in those nuances of like, what's expected to what's reality. Like, what do they expect and what do you expect? And like, so many things we talked about, back-end processes and systems. This scope of works are just like insane of just like getting everything detailed, stuff that you wouldn't even think of putting in there, of just like, why would I need to tell you to do this?
Yeah.
You do this professionally. Or like, why would I have to tell you not to do this? I think I came up to a building once, and there was a bunch of roofers that had a bonfire next to a home under construction in the winter, probably 15 feet from, $1.5 million of lumber. I'm just like,
yikes.
Are you guys insane? Like, clearly you're fired. Like the amount of stories, and I'm sure you have them too, of just like,
timing though. Like, timing is just like, it's so difficult to have, okay, this has to be done on this day. And then he's going to come in here and like, you're trying to have a schedule, but then the schedule gets wiped out every morning because something didn't happen. And it's every day for a year and a half.
That's right. Yeah.
You got to be so patient, and you got to be comfortable just being totally overwhelmed every second.
How's Lauren handling it?
I think I shelter her a little bit so she gets to do the selections and do the fun part. And I kind of handle the all the stress and
You're just taking it.
I'm just getting abused left and right. And because to me, at the end of the day, I don't really care what color the floor or the handles are. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Every corner matters. So, doing the best that I can.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Was there anything that you've failed miserably at?
I don't know if failed miserably at. I think I have. Well, I would say our business that we opened failed miserably at that. And I'm not a guy that likes to make excuses and say, well, COVID played a role. But
it was a pretty big monster.
It was big, but still, I think I failed miserably. It was a franchise, and I think, naive on my part, I thought we would be successful at it. And I think we just failed. The terms of the deal were not good. Just a lot of things that if I would have looked at that term sheet at this point, I would have walked away from it 4 years later. At that point, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I just, that was an expensive learning tax, but everybody's got to pay them at some point. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that I failed miserably at.
Yeah. So you're starting, you're at the start of something that is just like going to keep growing and growing and growing. So I suppose that, if you were to meet the 18-year-old version of yourself, we could even go younger than that too, because you started hockey so early. But what would your advice to him be?
I think about this a lot, actually. And I think I was so focused at that point in playing hockey, and I should have been, which I was. When you're in the top 1% in the world and what you do, you have to be laser focused. But I think I would have said, enjoy the ride a little more. You're there, and it's every single day. It's like, I got to get better. And you're thinking about, I got to score and I got to get my next deal. That you miss the ride. You're like always focused on the destination at the end. And people say that, in regards to life. And I say it to my hockey career. And when I talk to young hockey players, I say it now, like, young kids playing hockey, you get to go to tournaments. Like, that was the best. Junior hockey, I gave a awards banquet speech to the Beaujolais Common said, junior B, I believe it is. And I said, this is the best time you're going to have playing hockey. And they all kind of looked at me like crazy. They're like, what? And I was like, try to enjoy the ride. Like, you're playing with your best friends. You're playing hockey right now because you love it. It's not a job. It's not a profession. This guy's not trying to take your job. Like, enjoy the ride. And I would have said to myself because hockey puts you in a lot of interesting circles where you can meet a lot of influential people, and I would have networked probably a little better, and I would have probably picked people's brains along the way. I mean, you're around so many success, like, we're talking Jeff Molson, owner of the Montreal Canadiens. He was there all the time, like massive, massive business people that I could have picked their brains and took in the opportunity, and they would have been grateful to do it. And I didn't. So that would have been a big one.
Yeah, very nice. I don't know if people listening know this. I mean, I'm sure some do, but you also have a podcasting career, let's say. Take me through that. How did it start? Where is it now?
Yeah, so I started it in COVID, I think, kind of when I was kind of lost there and I wanted something to do, and I was fresh out of the NHL. I was sitting at home watching a lot of hockey, not doing anything. And I messaged a couple of people that I knew. I said, let's fire up this podcast, and found a guy that could run it in the backside. All of us were all over the place. Like, nobody was in Winnipeg. It was like, I had a guy from Toronto, New Brunswick, Montreal. They were kind of everywhere. Yeah. And we kind of we grew it pretty quickly, actually. I think because the Montreal fan base is just so insane. They're just, they looking for anything. If any former player comes on and does anything, like, you get views. So it was pretty easy. We started interviewing players that were on the team currently. We were doing some players that were recently retired, kind of everything. So it was great. And I think I stopped doing it probably about maybe a year ago. People are always, you got to bring it back. You got to bring it back. And I just think I got to the point where it was like, we were filming at night when everybody could do it. And I was getting to that point where it's like, my kids get home from school at 4, they're going to bed at like 7. They're still so young. I'm not taking an hour to be doing these podcasts when I want to be spending with my kids. And it wasn't a lot of time, but it's something I use the word intentional. I'm very intentional with my time, and I'm getting better with it, where I'm saying no to a lot more things, and, making sure I'm doing things that are, filling my jar and things that I really enjoy. Yeah.
Now, 4 kids, how old are they?
Hunter is 10, Jordan is 8, and Jersey and Hayes are 5.
What kind of sports are they into? What kind of things are they into?
Yeah, Hunter loves hockey, but he's into pretty much whatever I'm into. When he was, I was still in the NHL when we had him. Hockey wasn't, I don't know, maybe because he was there all the time. It wasn't like he didn't like it as much. But now that I stopped playing, he loves it. I get to coach him. It's great. But he's into anything. He loves, real estate. He loves numbers. He loves landscaping now. Like, he just wants to do whatever dad does.
Yeah, so it's awesome.
It's pretty cool. He's such a cool kid. Jordana's 8. She loves hockey. She's all into hockey, so she loves it. And then my twins are kind of all over the map. My youngest guy, Hayes, I had him skating this year, so he was playing. Seems to like it. He just likes bowling people over. He's a little bull in a china shop. He's probably a football player in the making instead of hockey. Like, he's built pretty thick. And then Jersey's just very interesting. She's the one who I'll be sleeping at 3:00 and I hear this noise and I think someone's breaking in, and it's like her on her iPad. So it's just she's interesting.
Now, I know we kind of got, I don't know how deep we got into it. I can't remember, but we first met at a little hockey or a little football game, right? Of our kids playing. Hockey, they don't start hitting till what, 14?
I think now it's like 13, 14 or something. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's quite late. Or I can't say quite late. It is what it is. I don't actually know of any other sport that starts hitting before that except for football. And so my little guy's playing football now. And what are your thoughts on how kind of hitting and, ever since the movie Concussion and CTE, and I mean, you've been in lots of tilts on the ice, maybe off, I don't know, but it's a brutal sport if you keep your head down, right? And so there's a lot of big hits, and is that something that not just for the guys playing, but I mean the kids coming up? Take me through that. Like I'm I'm having a tough time with it.
Yeah, it's something I probably got a little more conscious about later in my career. The fighting, the hits to the head. I think they play a role in the pro game 100%. I would never want that taken out of the sport. But when I look at, watching, and my nephew's 13, so it was his first year of hitting. It's double age now, which to me makes no sense. You got guys that are hitting for the first year, and you have older guys that are older, they're bigger, they're stronger, and they've already hit for a year.
Yeah.
So it just seems backwards to me. Whereas I truly think kids should start hitting at 8 years old.
Okay.
And I think because you get so used to playing with it, you learn to protect yourself. You learn at a young age before anyone can really get hurt. At 8 years old, nobody's really big enough. Nobody skates well enough that you could really get hurt. And of course, you could fall on the board. It's funny, but the chances are not real high. So I think you learn it at a young age. Whereas now there's such a size gap at that age. My nephew's 6 feet tall. He's 13 years old. Like he's 100. He's a huge kid. Where you got these small. Some kids are under 5 feet. They're like 70 pounds.
Yeah.
It's just such a size difference. And I don't know. I don't think there's enough people teaching it well enough either. I watch kids hit and they're hammering kids from behind and people got their hands on there's just not enough good teachers of it, which I think is dangerous. And then I to fast forward a little bit, when I think of people with, I met some hockey players that obviously have an onset of CTE already at young ages. And you see all these professional athletes that are dying at young ages. And you're looking at their brains and they all have CTE. Like it's concerning. It's definitely something I think about, obviously being in a lot of fights. I got no issues at this point in my life, but at 35, it's probably still a little too young to be determining if I had any long-term brain issues or anything, but knock on wood, I feel pretty good at this point.
Yeah, that's good. So what was the biggest difference in the different teams that you played on, we'll bring this back to Winnipeg, but how did you find the different geographical locations? Like how was it playing in, New York, Philly, Chicago?
Oh, great question. Not only did I get to play probably in the best cities in the NHL, but just the greatest cities. Being from Winnipeg, playing junior in Swift Current, Saskatchewan with a population of 12,000 people. And
on this show, we call that God's country.
Yeah, in God's country. And going to New York City as a young, wide-eyed 20-year-old kid, it was incredible. I remember because I went to training camp. I signed a contract the third day that I was there. I had no American money. They give you per diem. I think at that point it was like $68 a day. They give you meals for breakfast and lunch at the rink, so you had to pay for dinner. So it was fine. It was enough. But I was getting to the point where I had to get an apartment there and I had no money. And here I was like, a 20-year-old kid. And I'm like, Dad, they give you a slip and you're like, you got to get out of the hotel in 5 days. You got to get an apartment. It's like, I don't have any money. Like, how am I going to get an apartment? Like, I don't even have a credit card here. What am I doing? Yeah. Well, I remember calling my dad. I was like, Dad, like, how am I supposed to get an apartment here? I have no money. So I ended up getting my dad's credit card and stuff, which is kind of a funny story. But New York was insane. I love New York. It's a beautiful city. Loud.
I've traveled quite a bit. I've never been yet.
You got to go. You got to go. New York City's it's something you just got to see. It's one of those cities. I mean, you don't need to do anything. You go sit on a patio in a busy corner. Every corner's busy there. It's just something, you just being from Winnipeg, you can't compare it to anything. Going from there to Vancouver might've been probably the second best place that I lived in. Again, I didn't spend a lot of time in Vancouver when I was a kid, so traveled there for a hockey tournament maybe once or twice. Probably the most beautiful city in the world to me. You have water sports, you have the mountains, you got Whistler, you got high-end restaurants, high-end shopping. Like you have everything that you need all within half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's just incredible. Montreal, very similar to Winnipeg climate-wise, but Montreal, you could be, no disrespect, but you could be the worst player on the team and be the biggest celebrity in the whole city. Like you can't drive in your car in Montreal without people screaming at you. Like you have tinted windows and they're like screaming at you. Like, how do you even see me? Like you guys are psycho.
They know your license plate.
Oh yeah. People were, every single player would have people showing up at their door, knocking on the door middle of the day. Like it was just the next level there. It was crazy. And then I lived in Chicago. I was only there briefly. I spent 3 months there, just kind of got traded there to deadline. And then we went there So I didn't experience it a lot, but I loved it. And then Philadelphia, I lived in South Jersey, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which was by far my favorite place to live. Just incredible properties, probably for real estate, like massive properties, really incredible architecture. Like it was just probably I would go back and live there in a second.
Very nice. You're currently, or so Lactabani, you consider home.
Yeah.
And then now Winnipeg, or slightly just outside.
Yeah.
What is it about Winnipeg that is it just you grew up here? Is it feeling more comfortable? Is it something with the kids? Like, what is it about Winnipeg that you're putting down even deeper roots?
I think, I just think me and Lauren are from here. All of our families are here. Our businesses are here now. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Vancouver and Montreal, and these are great cities, but I think Winnipeg's just always home for me. I love Winnipeg. I love the smallness of it. I love that I can get from one end of town to the other in half an hour. If I don't want to deal with traffic, I can hop on the perimeter and fly past people. And again, I think me and Lauren are both very close with our families. My parents are very involved. Babysitting. Next year we'll have probably 4 kids playing hockey. We're going to need some rides from time to time, so it'll be interesting. So I just think we're very close with our families, and just kind of everything's here. So I don't see us going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. What's the family kind of routine? Like, how does that mix with your routine now after you've bought all this thing? Like, do you have a morning routine, or so you're a routine guy, but now with the new business with 4 kids and intentional time with your wife, how does that all shape up?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm a big believer, and I think I do a lot of reading, much like yourself, and I like to read about extremely successful people, and you try to mimic, why are they successful? And I think if you look at, Alex Hormozi is probably the only guy that I've read about that doesn't have a strict routine, and he'll be like, you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. You don't have to do this, and he kind of shoots down all the other gurus. Well,
his thing is just fucking work.
Yeah,
right. Like,
which you gotta respect.
Just work.
Yeah,
right. And so, yeah. I mean, I love Alex Hormozi. Yeah. That guy's a beauty.
Yes.
Part of me is like, dude, if you have a kid,
yeah, what's going to happen?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know how they're going to do it, because Layla too is like,
oh, they're incredible.
They're amazing.
And I'm sure that they would dominate as parents too.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things of like, I think about that a lot, actually. I was thinking about this like 2 days ago of just like, yeah, but you don't have kids. It's a stupid excuse. Yeah. I'm sure they would dominate it too, because they're very analytical and intentional about the actions they take.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know for me, so where I was leading to is I have to have a routine, and I have to, when I get up in the morning, I got to get up before my kids. Otherwise, we're just playing toys or something, or we're doing something, we're laughing or joking. Like, nothing's going to get done if I'm not up before them.
Yeah.
So definitely, I'm up before them. I got to do something active. We got one Great Dane, and we're fostering a puppy right now, which is crazy too. So getting the dogs up early, going for a walk kind of just in the morning, it just livens you up. It's like having a double espresso. Like, get outside, whether it's -30 or it's sunny out, it doesn't matter to me. I like to get outside, walk right away. And if I can get some sort of work on it doesn't even have to be big. Like, get on a treadmill, do some sprints, a couple air squats, push-ups, just literally 10, 15 minutes of just getting the blood flowing.
Yeah.
And then having a coffee. And if I have to do some emails or whatever it is, I can kind of get to it right away before anyone gets up. And sometimes I leave before the kids gets up, or, maybe I drive them to school one day. So it's kind of, it's been a work in progress right now. I think once we get into our house again, I can probably hammer down a routine with my new sauna and cold plunge. I'm hoping so.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you if you're a cold guy.
Oh, I miss it. I miss it. Every NHL team had the cold tubs and the saunas and stuff. I got more into saunas my last couple years, and then in Sweden, played in Sweden for a year, and these Swedish and Finnish people swear by it. Like, it's all they do there. It's everywhere.
Them and Andrew Huberman.
Yeah. They swear by it, and they just do it all the time, and they're in there for half an hour and then they cold plunge for 15, like just swear by it. But, and I would say, and I'm stereotyping, but Swedish and Finnish people are like, they look 20 years younger than any other, nation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're doing something right.
Well, I'll put a little plug here for the squash club. I think we have the greatest steam room in all of, I don't know, Canada.
Really?
It's insane. You'll have to come check it out.
I will.
And then we'll test your squash
We got to
ability.
get into some squash too.
Yeah.
I've never played squash.
Really?
Ever. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I haven't done any of these games. I got to get into it.
I like it.
Yeah.
You can control the steam yourself.
Oh, perfect.
It's awesome. It's phenomenal. But the cold plunging, oh my goodness. Has that ever, there is a, I don't know if he's just on TikTok, but he creates, Jordan, Jordan, I can't remember your last name. But he's doing a cold plunge every single day. And that's been his account. Was just like,
he just cold plunges.
He just cold plunges every single day outside. Doesn't matter how cold it is. In middle of winter, and his stuff freezes. He smashes it. And Ferroni, something like that. Ferrone. And he's gotten huge because it's actually really cool and it's consistent and it's hard, right?
Very hard.
Doing hard things matters.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. But I've just found such like, if I could take, cold showers, right? It's kind of the minimum that you can do at home. And my mornings are completely different if I can jump in that cold shower.
Yeah.
It's
just, and it's scientifically proven to wake you up and it's just everything.
I love it.
Yeah.
Who have you found have been the, not just who or what has been the biggest influences or mentors, or what has influenced you the most, not only growing up but during your career and now after?
I would say probably my biggest influence growing up was probably my dad, and my mom. Both, again, just at every game, at every practice, my biggest supporters. Those lonely bus rides in junior where you're riding 16 hours and, you're miserable and it's pitch black outside on the prairies. Like those are some tough nights and wondering where your career is going. And then it doesn't get any better in the American League. And, as you continue to get better and play in the NHL, the stock only gets higher, the pressure gets bigger. Just having them all the time, like for me just was huge. And my wife and my kids at that point too were kind of nice to take my mind off it. But business wise, I would say 2020, I bought my property in 2011 in Bird River, and I had 5 lots beside me for 10 years. Nobody bought them. And 2021 came around, and his name's Derek Braun. He owns Denray Tire. He moved in beside me. Jeff Arnell, he owns Advanced Service Group, and a couple other real estate guys, just private guys, kind of moved in. And those guys have kind of been really big mentors for me. Definitely Derek of Denray Tire and Jeff of Advanced Service were, as I was looking at businesses and both very successful guys in their own rights, they were huge for me and still continue to this day. So they've definitely taken kind of the mentor and guidance role, because they've both second generation businesses for them, massive businesses, both of them, and just really cool guys who've gotten really, really close.
Excellent. Very nice. You mentioned the phrase, you don't know what you don't know. Is there anything that I didn't know to ask you that I should have? You knew you were coming on. Is there anything that people should know about Dale Weiss, about anything that you want to get across that we didn't talk about?
No, you know what? I would say this would be the first podcast or interview, I think, where I've covered absolutely everything in my life, from sports, business, family, literally everything. You literally nailed everything on the head. So I can't think of anything that we didn't cover. It's excellent.
So I'm really interested to follow what you're going to do, how you're going to grow this business, what you do next. I mean, I'm really excited. I'd love to have you back on at another time to talk about just your experience building these businesses and then moving on. So come back anytime. It was a pleasure having you on, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. I'd be happy to come back and reassess where we're at. And I think it'd be excellent. I always got, new dogs, new businesses, new houses. We'll actually talk about how my house got finished. So we'll have to plan that at some point.
When you're in. Yeah. If people want to follow you, are you on, how do people find you? How do they?
Yeah, Instagram, Weise Dale. A couple of fake accounts stole my name, so I could never get Dale Weiss. So Weise Dale on Instagram. I'm active at responding to people. I'm not so active at posting. Something I should definitely get better about. I haven't really made it. Again, intentional is a really important word to me, and I need to get more intentional about posting. And I think with social media, I'm kind of like a little old school with it, where I which is, to touch on this, if we can get into it a little bit, I was posting stuff about my house, and somebody obviously follows me and my wife. We had stuff delivered there, broke in, stole it that day. So it's like, it's tough. You want to share your life and you want to kind of show people, and a lot of people are just not so much fans, but they want to see what you're doing, and you want to be able to show that. But it's almost, you're border on the fence of like, it's kind of dangerous in the world we live in now. You just never know. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, you're Dale Weiss, right? And so, you'll have more people being a little more, I guess, fanatic is where the whole name comes from. But yeah, it's definitely a little dicey at times. I think intention is one of the big things, is like, what's the purpose of posting? And I think that, your kids coming up are going to have a lot of pressure on them as far as social media and stuff. I should say my kids too. And that's something that I do think about and worry about. And, there's a lot of that, but, now that you have this business, how do you look at social media and marketing and even sales? Has that shifted quite a bit? Is that something that you're diving into?
Yeah, it's something we definitely have lacked, just for the sake of word of mouth. Obviously, for being around for 42 years, they have a long client list, and their reputation kind of speaks for themselves, which I think is great. But in order for us to grow, I think we need to have a little more of a presence. I will be at the forefront of that presence, but I wanted to allow the time for the previous owner to kind of transition out and talk to the people that he's dealt with for years. And I would rather them find out from him, they've had relationships for 15, 20, 30 years than, me on social media and someone else comes out and tells them. And I didn't want that for the previous owner. He's done such a good job. He has so many great relationships. I owe a ton to him. He's built this business. So as we move forward, I'll definitely dive a lot more into it. I just think it's a cool space where we do such cool projects, and I'd love to show people what we do. I think I follow a ton in the city. There's so many great landscapers that just do a great job, and you get the aerial, like much like yourself, where you guys do the aerial view. Yeah, I think it's tremendous. I think it's so cool. Yeah, and for people to really see what happens, and I think even the videos you were doing that like detail anything about it, and just the little quality that you do, I just think is so key. When you get that outlet, it's like, wow, look how detailed this guy is building his house. Like, this is someone I can trust. And I think social media allows people to know you without really knowing you. And then they can trust you, and then they trust the brand. And then eventually, that leads to a sale down the line. So I think it's extremely important for business. And I think it's something we need to dive further into. So I'll be focusing more on the business side than my personal side, but they do kind of go together. So I need to,
especially being at the forefront of the company, right?
Yeah. So I need to find a way to blend that together, and work in progress.
Yeah, I get it. When I think of landscaping and social media, I think of that. I don't know. One account kept popping up in my feed, and it was the guy that would go and cut people's lawns for free.
Did you see the guy on the sidewalk? Did you see the sidewalk guy?
Yeah. Like,
is that the guy? Okay.
Like, just he'd go up to the worst yards ever and just like potentially almost get shot, and just be like, no, I'm just gonna do your yard if that's cool. Yeah. And he does it. And like, his account just blew up. Now, I think that the hardest part with that part is converting. right? Is not only looking at the ego numbers and the views and everything like that, but also like how many clients do we get from there, and how do we do that? So yeah, that's one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle, and something that, I mean, I definitely haven't mastered, and keep thinking about it and keep working at different things too. So it's an adventure.
Yeah. And I would say in home building, landscaping, it's tough, because we're putting it out, and I think your niche market and age we're probably in the same, we're probably in the same category where we want to be, and those are the people we're trying to attract. I think old school would have thought, they're probably not on Instagram, they're probably not on TikTok, but no disrespect to older people, I see you're at a coffee shop and I see a 67-year-old woman, she's on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And my mom's 65 there, she's on TikTok, she probably knows TikTok better than I do. So it's definitely a changing space where, in 10 years and 20 years, when both of our businesses are growing at that point, I would be willing to bet, you're converting a ton on Instagram, you're converting a ton on TikTok. Yeah. If TikTok's still around at that point.
Right. Do you follow Gary V?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been listening to him for a long time, and everything that he's kind of said about these different platforms that come on is just like, even TikTok, right? Even he said very early on, it's not going to be a dancing platform forever. Uh-huh. Right. And it's going to normalize. It's going to become like Instagram or like Facebook. Like, it's going to be content. Just start making content. Just go. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think you're right. And not only would old people, or older, I should say, be on it, but even if they're not on it, they may be influenced by their kids, mm-hmm. right, who are on it, and they know that they're looking for a landscaper, they're looking for somebody to do it, and they follow this account, and they're like, oh, I know somebody, and that's like the own little word of mouth. But just because they see you all the time, like top of mind, where's people's attention most of the time? On their phone.
Of course.
Right? Like, it's, oh yeah, the whole game is incredible.
Yeah, it's changing, or it has changed already, and it's going more that way every day, I would say.
Well, let me know if you ever want to nerd out, marketing, sales, process, systems, anything like that. I think it's developing stuff like that is just, it's so cool to watch and build, and then see if things work and not work, and then you get to test them and split tests, and it's great. I'm fighting Google ads right now to the extreme. So, but I appreciate the time. I know that you value your time. So thanks so much for sharing this. I know that people listening can learn so much, and that's it. People that coming on that have had a lot of success and great ways of looking at life and thinking at life, how they can affect others. So I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks again. I've been a huge fan of the show. So I've loved the previous guests. So I just wanted to live up to the billing a little bit.
You did, very much so. Okay, come back anytime.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.